I just realized I met you.
How about that?
Thank you. You like it?
Yeah.
I
Nate O'Connor vibe going on.
yeah, I got it shaved off yesterday. I've always want I when I was a teenager, I wanted to shave my head. I wanted to shave my head because I was kind of afraid to, and I like to try and face my fears and stuff like that. And I always felt like it would be so liberating. But people were always like, "No, don't do it, don't do it." A few years ago, I shaved a little bit of my head when I got really mad about some political stuff over here. And then I've got like my partner is going through some just really crappy stuff or whatever. So I shaved my head in solidarity for him yesterday. It was cool. The place I went to, I was like, hey, would you let me live stream you shaving my head and all that kind of stuff? And they let me. And so it was nice. I'm excited. So I got them to give me a lightning bolt, and I have like three heartbeat lines over here for me and my guys. And then on the back, do you recognize this symbol?
Oh God, look at that.
Do you recognize that?
I've seen it. I don't remember it.
So it's not perfect, but have you seen the movie V for Vendetta?
No.
Oh my gosh. David, watch that movie. I don't know what kind of geek you are, but okay, are you familiar with November 5th, Guy Fawkes Day?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, November 5th is a UK, I don't know if it's a holiday or
Oh, that
not,
guy.
but
Okay.
yeah, the one that wanted to blow up Parliament. Well, V for Vendetta is basically it's kind of inspired by that, but it's like set in the future, dystopian, corrupt government, et cetera, in the UK. V is the name of basically like a vigilante, terrorist, but I mean, really, he's like a hero. Um, and it's a really great story, but it's like really cool. It's so cool, David. It's so cool. You should. I would highly recommend it. But it's like in it, there's just I don't know. There's so much cool stuff in there. But anyways, it's a symbol from the thing, basically standing up against corruption for what's right. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that spiritual people would love in it, even though like I wasn't into I wasn't into spiritual stuff at all when that movie first came out, and I absolutely loved it. Now it has even more meaning.
How's that sign supporting you and your next steps?
So for me, this sign is, it's a sign of like resistance so long story short, one of my partners is a U.S. veteran who he lost a son. He went to a VA hospital in Tennessee about 3 years ago for grief counseling because of the death of his son, and instead of receiving grief counseling, was held against his will, and that caused him to spiral and to avoid going to the one source of like health whatever that he had. And his life started spiraling out of control. And for the past 2 years, I've been basically working as his healthcare proxy and advocate to get him back into the system and to help communicate for him because he has severe PTSD. Enough of several doctors think he has a TBI that he needs. Three different doctors have mentioned that he has the signs of a traumatic brain injury. Uh, but yet, despite that, we have yet to get any imaging and things like that. Like we tried for 2 years to get mental health the normal way, scheduling an appointment. So, for an example, the VA is the military healthcare in the US. We finally, I'm just skipping ahead. When we finally got something scheduled, it was scheduled 3 months out. I mean, and he already was like severely in need of it. When the appointment gets here and it's a telehealth appointment, we get a call that morning and it is canceled and rescheduled for a month later. And a month later, we get a call that morning and it is canceled and rescheduled for a month later. And anyways, we have been battling the system, and what's going on right now is he was swinging pretty bad last week and wanted me to take him for help. And so I took him to the VA ER on Friday, and we went in and he was calm. We were, he was, because he gets triggered and like he swings up and down and stuff, but he always comes back. But I mean, he needs some help. But he was calm. He was fine at the thing. We went in and we're going to the ER because we haven't been able to get him help the other way. And we go into the room and eventually, and we tell them he's not currently having any thoughts of harming himself or others, but he was swinging and having and talking about hurting himself. Now, if being honest, he has done that many times in the past, and he never has. Now, I realistically do think that he has been escalating, and I was genuinely worried one day this past week. I was laying in bed all night just waiting to hear a gunshot, because I at this point it's like we have been trying for help. There's nothing I can do. He's a grown man, so it's complicated. And we're not, polyamory isn't recognized in the United States, so I only legally have one partner, and I only have like the rights of like the healthcare proxy that I've been given and so that's limited. That lets me speak for him and in certain instances and stuff like that. But anyways, I take it to the ER. Eventually, three doctors come in, and we tell them about that he's been swinging, and he's not currently, right now, but he has. And we do tell them that we've been trying to get help for the last 2 years and all this kind of stuff. And we ask them, what kind of mental health services can you offer? Like he was ideally hoping, I mean, he wants help, but he was ideally hoping that, someone would talk to him and maybe give him for something for anxiety and stuff like that, because he's not on any medication right now, or he doesn't have any medication right now. And we tell them that he has trauma from being held against his will by the VA in the past. And so we would like to avoid inpatient care. We really want outpatient care. What are some of the options and stuff? And anyways, eventually they ask a few more questions. They leave the room. Eventually they come back. When they come back, they're like, after reviewing your records, because I mentioned that he has been flagged for severe anxiety and he has been flagged for PTSD multiple times in his medical records the last 2 years. And his psychiatrist that he was seeing would use PTSD and mention TBI to me, but it is not officially written down as a diagnosis anywhere, which has prevented us from being able to get him support and etc. And anyways, probably when they saw that the records on top of everything, he's a liability. And so I want to believe that, I want to believe that they are trying to help him, but they came in and they insisted on on inpatient care, and he was like, that's not what I wanted. And I'm proud of him. He stayed really calm for a really long time. And I'm there, and I'm like, are you recommending inpatient care, or are you insisting on an involuntary hold? It's the same thing. It's just one is with consent and one's against his will, and they're like both. Well, it's not actually a choice now, is it? And so long story short, they separated me from him, and I left him at like 2 p.m. in the ER. He was there until 10:30 the next morning. They took his phone away around 6 in the afternoon and transferred him to a non-VA facility where I don't have access to him as his healthcare proxy. Like they've cut him off from his support because all he has is me and his mom and my husband. And he's still in this inpatient facility. And finally, after days of not hearing from him, and I knew what was going to happen, is he gets in there. I know he's having flashbacks and he thinks that he's in prison. And he does not, when he fluctuates, he does not, he has memory and comprehension problems and communication problems on top of like normal PTSD stuff, that we think is because of a TBI. And that's why he needs me or an advocate. So I mean, I have just been working my butt off the last 5 days, making all the calls and trying to figure out all the things and stuff. And For me, I'm an artist, an educator, and an advocate. I make art about things to raise awareness and stuff, but like I've always been like, I guess like I always wanted to be like a champion for other people. And if I'm being honest, I am. Because like, I my biggest thing, or what I thought would be my biggest thing, is like I've had a lot of trauma in my life. But like the biggest thing that like I've spoken out about and made work about in the past was like I was assaulted. Well, I'll just say that. I saw your daughter in the background earlier, so I don't want to go
Don't
into
worry,
what she
don't
did.
worry.
For 2 years by my ex-stepfather from like 13 to 15. And then I went through 3 years of court. And I did that because I'm an elder sibling. I've always thought of myself, I always wanted to be a knight at King Arthur's table. I think I mentioned that to you one time. And he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop even after we moved to a different house. And, I I didn't necessarily want to punish him at the time. My thought process was I want him to stop hurting people. I felt like I'll be honest, going through the legal system in the United States, I think it traumatized me more than what actually happened to me, or at least that's how I have felt about the experience so long. Because when you're in denial, it's a little easier. When you come out and everyone can see and judge, and you're constantly questioned and stuff, it's so difficult. But like, I've been motivated a lot in my life to do things in order to help other people not feel alone, know that they're not the only, crazy, awesome person out there and all that kind of stuff. And so, one of my big things, just kind of professionally and stuff, is uh, so user experience. We're going to be kind of like, but more than user experience, I'm a systems thinker. And so this is just one example of a systematic failure in the United States. And I'm about to be the next freaking Aaron Bronkovich. I don't know if you know who that is, but like
I know that name.
I document everything. And I learned to document everything, and that's how we won my case. Less than 3%, okay, less than 3% of victims of sexual assault who report being assaulted, less than 3% of the ones that report actually go through the legal process. So like I'm already part of like a really small percentage. And everything I do in life, I'm always noticing, I always want to make things better for everybody. And I'm just like, I pay attention to like all of the flaws. Like for instance, this inpatient facility, every time I call, I'm given a different answer about something. It's obvious no one's trained. There's no consistency. They don't know where to ask. They can't provide simple info. They are holding a man, they're holding a man against his will. They've taken his rights away, and he's supposed to be a patient, but he's being treated like a prisoner. He and his support people, when we finally got contact with him in the last day, have not been provided any information about what his rights are, or have not been freely given any information about what his rights are, what our rights are, and so on. And I'm over here like, oh, where's your web page or your brochure or your email or your form that's like, okay, you're allowed to call, you're allowed this, this is when visitation is, this is how this works. Nothing. And I've talked to multiple people, and like nobody, and I'm over here like, well, no wonder nothing works and everything is broken and nobody knows how to answer anything, because apparently it's just too darn difficult to write down an operating procedure. You don't have to have everyone memorize everything, but you should have it written down, in one place, an internal website perhaps, and everyone should know where it is to go look to find the answers for common things. Like in the healthcare industry over here, they take everything for granted, and then they forget that people do not know their language, do not know their policy. When you go into a hospital, like I was hospitalized with COVID in 2020, I, I I received no information about what my rights were, what I could ask the nurses for. I sat in my hospital room the first 2 to 3 days in shock, just sitting in my bed, like I was hooked up to a machine. I couldn't. I didn't know if I was allowed to take it off or not. I was just trying to be a good girl and, not bother anybody. But I had been wetting myself. I was on my cycle. I sweat. I mean, like I'm in my own filth for like 2 to 3 days. And the nurse, the nurses never said anything. I mean, it was absolutely awful. And then finally, like one day, the bathroom door was closed by the cleaning lady, and I saw a bin on a shelf, and I went over to look at it. And when I saw that there was shampoo in it, I was like, maybe I can take a shower. So I asked someone, but I was the one having to do that, like all of that stuff. Why? Does that make sense? I don't know if you've experienced this kind of problems where you've been, but we have those problems everywhere, and there's no excuse for it in this day and age. The healthcare industry, but and that's just one thing, like I'm about to go to a work conference in a few days, and when I get back, I'm going to pick what's called a paralegal. I'm going to get a paralegal certification. It's only like 3 to 4 months to get one, and it will give me the skills and the knowledge I need to be able to more effectively navigate the legal system. Because over here in the United States, the only thing people don't actually, no one cares about anything. They're more concerned with liability and lawsuits. So I'll bring up some. So, anyways, I'm, a fire, everything happens for a reason. And, I know and I get stressed out and I fluctuate just like anybody. I had a couple of rough days and I still have a lot of anxiety and worry about stuff. But, my faith is that, when I come back to center, I believe that everything happens for a reason and it's ultimately in everyone's greatest interest. And so one of my superpowers is turning negatives, and it's not really turning negatives into positive. It's like I can see the positives and the negatives. Like I can see that even though this is Alex's worst nightmare and he may be further traumatized, I also know enough about trauma and healing to know that he may have to re-experience trauma in order to heal from it so that that loop can be completed and his brain can realize his fear is not as bad, the reality is not as bad as the fear. The fear is the worst thing and stuff. But we've not been getting help. He's a ticking time bomb. He's been trying so hard to keep himself together. He's a beautiful person. What he's experienced is just crazy because he was a normal, healthy, functioning adult. He probably had a little anxiety and stuff before his son died. But I mean, like he was in the military. He worked as a deputy in a prison, on the, et cetera. He was able to function, and then after that happened, just not. So, anyways, it's been all of this stuff with him the first 2 days, and this relates to me reaching out. The first 2 days this past week, I felt so disconnected. I realized that I just feel so disconnected from my community and from everyone and stuff, and that what I really need right now is to reach out to my community and the people I trust and stuff and get advice. And not just on his situation, but like being his caregiver the last 2 years has kind of taken over my life. Um, and I remind myself constantly the best way that I can help my guys is by helping myself and empowering myself to be able to do the work that I need to do to help them and hopefully others. And so, I have a whole lot of different stuff going on in a lot of arenas, spiritually, life. I wasn't planning on it, but even though everything's up in the air, so just one more detail about how messed up his situation is. We finally have a group call with his therapist. And this person, I'm really happy about his therapist because his therapist is a fellow veteran, and his therapist we had a group call with me, Alex's mother, Alex, this is my boyfriend, the vet, and the therapist yesterday, and it was good to hear Alex's voice because I hadn't heard Alex's voice because he's just been cut off and like lost in the thing. but the therapist seems to really care and help, and was trying to see one of the complications is that when they transferred Alex to when the VA transferred Alex to this inpatient facility, some form was filed requiring that he not be released until a judge sees him and says it's okay. Well, the therapist tried to see if they could get Alex on the docket for today. He's already been in this place for 4 days and the other place for a day. Well, the docket there's so many people that he couldn't get Alex on the docket for today. Otherwise, Alex would probably be coming home today. And guess what? They only see these kind of patients once a week. And so Alex definitely has to wait until next Wednesday and spend a whole nother week. It's possible he might have to spend 2 more weeks. And that is if he doesn't freak out about being forced to stay there that long and then end up having to stay longer. That's how messed up the system is, you know. And here's the other thing. It's like, so for instance, he's a vet. So the therapist telling me most people, most patients, they tell them 2 weeks, because it usually takes 2 weeks. But if you're a vet, you're expedited, and it's usually just 1 week because the VA will only pay for so many days. That just to me, this is just corruption. They're just sitting there and like milking whatever. But anyways, all of that to say is, I've got a lot going on, and I'm trying to get back into, okay, it is time to get focused and to come up with a plan and to get serious about some stuff and that sort of thing. Sorry, did I overwhelm you? I wasn't.
You didn't overwhelm me. You
Okay.
are overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed.
I'm here.
I'm taking
I'm here, and my daughter is sitting next to me, and I'm having a glass of wine, and I just got back from work. Here's Tokyo, and my love is not locked up at the moment. My love is in the bath upstairs. So no, I'm not overwhelmed. It's 8:30 at night here, 6:30 in the morning over there. For the last 25 minutes, you've been telling me 24 of those minutes were spent on Alex, and 1 minute was given to the paralegal plan and the mention of your feet dipping into various waters, although you didn't get into what those different waters were. You did mention the word spiritual at one point, and I thought you might go there, but you didn't.
I
And
gotta shut up
what
at
I
some
got out of
point.
that 24 minutes was that the V for Vendetta on the back of your head has something to do, because that was my original question, what was that all about? Has something to do with advocacy for human rights. And that's what I understood the paralegal certification to be about. And that's what I understood that the direction of, no, actually, I understood the direction of tonight's session anyway, to be helping you get your overwhelm under control. Maybe giving you a bit of an outlet, maybe giving you a place to touch down that's safe for just a few minutes anyway, somebody who might understand. And yes, here I am, and I do. What can I do for you?
Well, for you, look. So what kind of work do you do?
My
Out of
day
this
job, my day job is I'm a director of a learning and development department for a major hotel chain here. And we've got 24,000 employees, and I coach and I mentor and I teach and I instruct in hotel operations and this and that, and make sure succession planning is going all right and tell the managers what they need to be doing. And it's just a job, it pays the bills, puts braces on my kids' teeth.
So that's interesting. A learning and development team for the hotel industry
The learning and development department of a
department.
hotel chain. You've got
And,
350 hotels across the country. It's a big business.
and so is that like the training of the employees on the
Yeah.
system, or
It's the training in international relations, guest relations, the cultural aspects of international relations, the management, the operations of the hotel, of course, the food and beverage, the whole schlemiel.
that's really cool. I always love learning how different systems work. I like systems thinking, which relates back to the thing. And I'll say this: I do have I do have at least one specific spiritual thing, but like you were saying, yes, right now, I just need some FaceTime with people that I actually that make me feel safe and that, oh my God, David, I about flipped out. I was like on the phone with I was on the phone with my friend James, and I was like, oh my God, I was like, what could I have posted that would have like offended David enough to kick me out of his group and block me without letting me know? Yeah, I was like, what is it? Because at first I was like, well, he must have deactivated his account. I know. I was like, he must have deactivated his account. But then when I went to the group, I wasn't in the group anymore. I don't know what that was about. Honestly, I just have to believe that it's like a weird spirit thing because I had the last time I had communicated with you, I had shown my friend James, who's been a friend, like a spiritual friend of mine on TikTok, which is where I'm usually at for forever. And I've gotten him into doing the dancing and stuff. And we got to meet in person for the first time. And we were all hanging out, my family at home. And I was like, well, let me go, let's go. We're sitting in front of the TV while we're eating dinner. And I was like, well, I don't really watch a show. You know what? Let's go watch some of this thing with David. And so I messaged you and, asked you about the package and all that kind of stuff. And I know one of my last messages, I didn't see it, but I think one of my last messages to you was, basically about, reaching out at some point, like I catch up with you at some point in the future, not then, because life has been the past since I did that last reading with you this summer. So first, let me say that I ended up going on the most fantastic freaking adventure to the Florida Keys on the search for like Atlantis. And as far as my experiences go, like I found what I was looking for down there. It was an amazing adventure. Go talk to the oldest trees, and I went to all these places, and Spirit led me all these things. And just the highlights of like the last 8 months or so is like I traded in a car. I traded in a car. It ran for three months, and then the engine melted on this $26,000 car, and now it needs a $12,000 engine, and the dealer's like, tough luck, etc., no protection, whatever. So that was like that's been like a big hit financially that has pushed me into some tough water. I got pregnant for the first time in October, and I was so excited. I really want to have a kid, and and I've done like, and this is related to my spiritual path. Like one of the first like really big faith things I did is I was guided to have weight loss surgery in order to help improve my health. So both my health, but largely so that I could try and get pregnant. But 2 months into the pregnancy in November, which is part of why you didn't hear back from me when I had asked you about kind of the Reiki stuff, is when we went to the first appointment for the baby, they couldn't find a heartbeat, and it took a couple of weeks to confirm. And then at the end of November, I wanted to miscarry naturally, and at the end of November, I miscarried, and I had asked what to expect. And so I knew I was supposed to bleed a lot, but I didn't know the exact details. I didn't know I'm only supposed to bleed for like 2 hours. I was hemorrhaging for 5 hours. And when I started passing out and stuff, my guys took me to the emergency room, and I ended up having to have a 2-unit blood transfusion. And it was, I didn't have an NDE, but it was a very close, like very serious. I could have died, and then the shock from that, and then all the Alex stuff, and there's been other things too. But I have just had this year, like 2025 started out the most magical fucking year of my life. I mean, just freaking amazing. And then crazy stuff happened. But then I had my Atlantis Rising adventure, and that was really amazing and brought things up. And then I got pregnant, and I would rather have that experience than not have that experience, because at least I can, as far as I'm concerned, like, I did get to see my little thing, like that's part of why I wanted to naturally miscarry is I want to hold, I don't fucking care. It looks like a little alien being. It's like, and anyways, it's just been up and down, that's how life is. Like it goes up and down, but I know everything's a cycle and that there's always a rainbow after everything. And I know I feel I want to say I feel both the rainbow and the storm coming. But like when I say this, when I am talking about the storm that is coming is my focused attention and clear mind now that I have gone through this stuff and I can get to work and actually do some work, like get serious about stuff and focus, if that makes sense. And so it's been one hell of a year, and I know though it's my hope that this stuff with Alex is, but I feel like I think things are going to start to turn around now, like one of the downsides of I don't care how sick he is, I'd take care of him forever if I have to. But I absorb and I absorb. I'm so sensitive to energy. He's always around. I never get to reset my energy. And I can tell it was really interesting. I try to pay attention and I've become more aware that, for instance, when he has his episodes, his energy transfers to me. Not only does his energy transfer to me, but I will start having outbursts and fits in the way that he is to an extent, and so I've become more aware that I know my energy is being affected, but I've become more aware that it's not just affecting my energy. I am absorbing that or mimicking that to some extent. And so I'm trying to become even more aware so that I can catch it sooner and figure out how to release it and let it go, or how to transmute it. But I've been trying to learn how to have basically boundaries and stuff. I did do like I did end up doing like a Reiki level 1 training thing at a place in person near where I live because happens to be like a Reiki center, and I was like, okay, and that was good because I got to go be with people in person and stuff, and like I talked a little bit about that, and they tried to like the bubble and stuff, and I've been trying to work, and so for me, okay, so I have just got the more. And you can I think this is normal, but I'd like for you to confirm it. I've been going down my spiritual stuff's been going on about 6 years now. The more tapped in I have become, or the more sensitive I have become, the more difficult it has become for me to be around other people for periods of time. And I need to isolate, but I'm not ever able to isolate completely because of my caregiving situation and stuff. And it's just so like I have a big house right now, and like Alex or my husband Carl could be here and they can be in a completely different place, or Alex can even be, if he's out in the garage, it's not as bad. But I can feel them. And my body just cannot relax. Like, it's like I'm constantly on guard, waiting to be, interrupted or whatever. Or like my husband Carl, we're so freaking connected. I can just feel his energy, whatever it is. And it's usually, like a little like tense and stuff like that. And I'm like, I gotta go be a hermit in the woods somewhere, far, far away from everything. So that's one thing that I'm struggling with. I'm trying to get better with that. Um, and as far as like other spiritual things I wanted to mention, I actually did want to kind of talk about real life a little bit more, but other spiritual things is I wanted I don't think I finished rewatching Our Thing, but I watched enough. And one of the big things, there was a lot of stuff in that, because I think one of the things you said to me, the advice that came through the cards and stuff was that when you said that you recommended that I needed to take some time to focus on me and what I want, what Carol wants. And I did. And one of the things I did because of that was I started the process of enrolling to go get my doctorate degree. And I was interested in your hotel stuff because I was planning. I'm passionate about a lot of things, but education is one of the things I'm really passionate about. And I have kind of like this master plan or idea of what I'd like to do eventually. And so I was planning to do a doctorate in education, educational leadership and curriculum design, etc. I think I might go a different path now. I do not like sales. I don't like business, but I think that I'm probably going to go for my doctorate in that because those are some of the skills that I really need to be able to be successful at like what the vision that I have. But like basically, like it's like, that session with you, there were other things, but that was one of the big things. And I ended up starting a new job at the beginning of the year. And so I had to delay because I was going to start the doctorate program at the beginning of this year. I had to delay it, which is for the best. So I might go to the path now. But I'm really passionate about, systems and improving things. And actually, one of the things that I really love about Japan, so I hope you don't mind if I just ramble on a little bit. Okay. I went to undergrad for art, graphic design, web design type stuff, all that kind of stuff. And when I graduated, I worked as an in-house designer doing stuff for quite a few years. And by 2015, I was pretty burnt out, uninspired. I had never been out of the country at all. And my husband and I were talking about trying to get pregnant. And I grew up really poor and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I just really want to go out of the country at least once before we have a kid because I felt like travel would be really difficult afterwards. And I was like, well, let's do the trip that would be um, what I felt would be the most difficult to do if we had a kid. And for me at the time, I was like, out of the places I want to go, that would be Japan, because I was absolutely terrified, or not terrified. I mean, I had really bad anxiety about going to a foreign country where English is not the primary language and I'm not going to know how to communicate and stuff. I spent 3 months obsessively of researching and planning everything. And we went to Japan in 2015 for almost a month or about 3 weeks. I mean, and I did a great job planning it. We had an amazing trip. I mean, it was amazing. And it was beyond amazing though, David. Like I had so many wonderful experiences there. I felt at peace there. Just being, I didn't have to do anything. Just being in Tokyo. I mean, and I like the country, but just being in Tokyo, the energy, it felt so restorative. But relating it back to the design, it was visiting Japan that reignited my passion for design, specifically experience design, stretching it a little bit outside of the realm that my field normally does. But, I noticed that everything is done so thoughtfully, from everything that's provided at a hotel and how things work to when you go to a restaurant and they give you a little wet napkin so you can clean your hands. It's just a little thing, but it makes such a big difference to, taking your shoes off here. Or like I was walking down the sidewalk in Tokyo and they have this metal railing that's designed to dual serve as like a place to put your bike or a place to kind of, you can't sit on it normally, but you kind of can, just all of that thoughtful stuff like really ignited and helped me realize that what I was really interested in was experiences. Um, how can we make the world a better place and function better and for everyone and that kind of stuff. And anyways, to jump ahead in 2024 when I reached out to you, like Spirit had been nudging me to go
Can I
back to
ask a quick
Japan.
question? Just one
Yeah.
quick question. I'm just putting together the paralegal degree, the paralegal license, which will take a few months, and the idea to push for a doctorate. And a doctorate takes 4 to 6 years, in best case. Why not?
Not the ones I'm looking at. The ones I'm looking at, well, they can take that long, but I'm the ones I'm looking at are about 2 to 3. It's okay if it takes more than that. But okay, what's the question so I can answer the logic behind it?
Why not get a law degree?
I am considering it. So I'll say this. So I feel like this situation has brought me full circle. Okay, because here's the stuff that happened to me as a teenager. So when I was a kid, I already told you about King Arthur stuff. I really wanted to do two things. I wanted to join the military, which I could. That's the only regret I ever had in life was not joining the military. And I know it's for the best because our freaking government sucks and stuff. But I wanted to join something bigger than myself. I wanted to be, a soldier, champion, etc. But I had health issues and I couldn't join. And I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer until I went through the legal system and it traumatized me. And I like to try and fix things and make things better, but I was so traumatized from the experience. I was like, this system is
Excuse
so
me,
broken.
before we
There's
run out of
nothing I
time,
can
let me get
do.
to my next question.
Okay, sorry.
So, the overarching purpose of your forward momentum right now is to help Alex, no?
It's to help Alex, but not just Alex.
But for the
It's
moment, it's Alex.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the huge thing on your mind right now. And others like Alex, others in such a, is advocacy and volunteerism and NPO route and, that kind of way, picket signs and, marches and all kings, millions of people, or no kings, millions of people for all the good that does. Is that really the way to help the people in the way that you want to help them, or wouldn't a legal degree be worth getting over your trauma for?
So right now my plan is to get the paralegal thing. And I figured that by the time I finish the certification for that, I'll know whether I might want to continue with law or go the route that I think that I want to go for what still is my personal. I don't specifically want to work as a lawyer. Now, I was doing my research and all of that stuff to, and using AI and everything to help me be like, okay, what would be the most efficient way? I just need what skills do I need to be able to do, I've been doing all this stuff to be able to achieve my goals and actually affect change. So the paralegals are the ones that basically do all of the
I hear
work.
you.
And the
When
lawyer just does
the
this little.
Islamic terrorists flew their airplanes into the World Trade Center, the next day George Bush and Dick Cheney got on the airwaves. Do you remember this time? And they started spreading fear across the nation, trying to convince the Americans why it was so necessary to go to war. I was, I don't know, 23 or 24 at the time. I don't even remember. 27, 28, I think. It was the first time I got interested in politics because I heard the leader of the free world intentionally spreading fear. And I was incensed. And it was the first real pull for justice that I felt in my life. And I immediately began working for hope and change. That was the first time that I was pulled in that direction. And so by the time Obama hit the scene, I was firmly in his corner, supporting him in the way that I do best, silently. But right before it came time for him to win the early primaries, I flew from Japan to Washington, D.C. direct, spent one night in the town, went up the Washington Monument, faced the White House, said a prayer, and sent a huge message in the only way that I know how, because my PhD is completely ineffective in this case. Yeah, I know that the Freemasons created that land, and I can sit in a university hall and tell you all about it, but that wasn't going to elect That wasn't going to bring in the hope and change that I wanted to spread across the nation. And then the problem is that after 8 years of all that hope and change, all that beauty, all that excellence of word, still a firm 50% of the population rejected my guy. And I got all pissed off and I said, fuck you, you can have Trump. Go ahead. And so not knowing my boundaries or giving up on my boundaries, not caring anymore, also makes quite the ripple in the force. And what I notice about this 1 hour with you tonight, completely out of character with the last 1 hour I spent with you several months ago, was not once have you spoken your light language in the middle of all of this. So it
I
gives.
actually did a little bit, but I was trying to be quiet, so I wasn't interrupting you.
Well,
My light language has been wanting to come out
I bet
about
it
you and
has.
for you.
But what I'm saying is that the direction of your intent and the direction of your magic and the direction of what you really want to accomplish will be accomplished silently. It will be accomplished when you know what you own and what you don't.
Akashi onoko bakashi kaya nani.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just speak it so you can hear it, so you know it's wanting to come
I don't
out.
need to hear it. I'm just, you've been
But,
talking a
but
mile a minute on other things. You've been completely occupied with what you've been completely occupied with, and you're showing me what and no doubt, my God, you've been through some hell, and you're still going through some hell. But what I'm trying to say is that on this topic of energy, some things we own. I don't own the energy of 350 million people over there in the United States. That's not mine. It has nothing to do with me. I have myself, and anybody that I concern myself with in the moment, that's usually my daughter and my wife. But even they're not me.
can I say this? This is not so first, I'm all kinds of neurodivergent, and for me, I can't help but all of the dots for the spiritual stuff and this stuff all connect. It's just no one can see all of how all the dots, because no one knows what's all in my head and stuff. So, I'm notorious for, I'm trying to explain the picture, but like for you to actually, to be able to communicate, like and get you to where you understand, it's like I'd probably have to like, tell you several sessions, to help. But for me, the call to be okay, so God himself keeps telling me to go into politics, and I keep being like, I don't want to. I mean, there's part of it, and it's something that I've talked about and I've thought about for many, many years. I'm like, I was like, I don't want to do this, but man, somebody, where are the people of integrity and stuff? So this is something that, I mean, honestly, I know that God has been pulling me that direction my whole life. I knew I was going to be called to be a service leader, not because I feel like it's my responsibility to do that, but because I feel like those of us who have the strength and the insight to help should help if we're able. I wanted to be of service to people who need help, who can't fight for themselves or who have been, disenfranchised and stuff like that. And so my spiritual stuff and my I I'm like a bridge character between spirit and the muggle world, here to try and help, provide support and relief as much as possible. And even though the dreams that I have and the visions and stuff that I have seem crazy out there, I know that what, the bigger the dream, the further you're more likely to go. And
Look,
it's like,
I'm as
okay,
much an Avalon, England, Borderlands guy as the next girl. And I enjoy a good myth and I understand what the energy is all about. But I am not in the Ukraine and I am not in Russia. And what do I have to do with any of that? I don't own that. And so I can allow myself to feel as much as anybody carrying a good story around can feel, but it's got nothing to do with me. That's the God's honest truth. And so when somebody tells me, hey man, what do you think about what's going over there in the Ukraine? I'm like, I can think the same thing as you, or I can think the same thing as somebody else. The opinion exists, but what do I have to attach to it for?
But that's not what I'm talking about.
What I'm
What
talking
I'm talking,
about is when I see Putin's tanks invade the innocent, and suddenly I'm called to shout out to the Lord, hey, those tracks need to get stuck up in the mud. He shouldn't be able to get close to Kiev. That's not a good idea. The innocent, your innocent, are in danger, my lord. And then I open up the newspaper the next day, and those tracks have been stuck up in the mud. All I can say is, hey, way to go, God. That was a good idea. So it has nothing to do with me. And yet, what is the power of a word, of a conscious woman? Because you didn't have to go to school for that. And you have to know your place at the same time. That has nothing to do with, I didn't do that. That was all they're doing. They did that all by themselves. I'm just Mickey Mouse with a wand. So, yeah, when you know something, and then you're quiet about it. It's not yours. You're an empty vessel. You don't hold that. I can't hold 500 million Russians on my shoulders. This body will break.
and I guess for me, just I guess to kind of reassure you, is like you're saying. So how I do my, I'm a vessel. It's I'm a vessel for God and the universe to work through. That's one of the things I love about being a channeler. I love surrendering control and just allowing God and spirit to guide me. I love, I've been working really hard, especially the last few years to, I know I still have a lot of blocks. I still have control issues. I still have fear to go over, but I love, okay, so on Saturday, I pulled myself together and reminded myself that, um, there's always a rainbow after every storm, and that God and the universe work in mysterious ways and stuff like that. And then I ended up channeling, and Jehovah came through and was telling me that everything's going to be all right, and guided me to some things to reassure me and stuff like that. And I got myself back to a good balanced, so okay, so here's some of the positives about being locked up. I'm having a chance to recharge my batteries. I know I still look overwhelmed, but my energy the last few days, while it has fluctuated some, I got myself back into a place where my energy was so good that I started having sign after sign after sign after sign after sign, which is why part of why, I reached out to you, I reached out to a few other people or whatever. I signed up to go to this conference, and a volunteer spot happened to still be available and all that kind of stuff. And there's like a, matrix mentor there that I know is someone that I need to speak to and stuff. But what I did was, it wasn't about control, and it wasn't about, oh, here's my strategy. It was, okay, God, universe, like, lead me, like, where should I go? And what I love about being led like that is yes, I have a general impression and idea of where we're going. Is that destination fixed? Not necessarily, but right now I know that that's the direction we're going in. We might pivot at any point, but I know that I'm being called that way. And when I live my life and I do things that spirit and God are leading me on, like my adventures, and they tell me to do this and this, it's like a breadcrumb. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I don't know exactly, I drove to Miami not knowing where I was going, just being given, go talk to the oldest tree. That was the beginning. And then I'm led to the next thing and the next thing. When I surrender like that and follow God's spirit like that, magic happens. And I know I've experienced that enough to just trust the process, and to just, to just follow it in the moment with no expectation, no solid expectation of what's happening. Just trust that what I'm doing is the right thing to do, and that something good is going to come of it. does that
When my daughter was born, I was living in a rusty, moldy, broken down, holes in the walls, rats running all through the place, kind of dilapidated shanty down the street here. I was a beach bum for a long time, traveling back and forth between the Himalayas and Japan. Didn't care. No savings, no money, no job. But my daughter was born, and I did not want her to grow up in that house. Clear as a bell, this vision for how my daughter would grow up. She wouldn't grow up like me. And she certainly wasn't going to grow up in that kind of house where a mouse might crawl across her crib and crap in her pillow, and she wasn't going to be breathing mold and cutting herself on some rusty something or another. No, 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 no. If I felt like I felt for the kids of the world, if I felt like I felt for myself, how must I have felt for my daughter? It was a very, very clear feeling and a very, very clear understanding that I would have to make that happen, that there was no choice. There was no other idea. This will happen. She will have a home. She will have a clean place to be. And so, as you say, one thing leads to another. Suddenly, I'm employed. Suddenly, I have a credit line. Suddenly, the bank wants to give me a mortgage. Me, hippie me. I just got down off the mountains, been up there for 20 years. You want to give me a loan on a $500,000 home? Okay, I'll take it. And I'll show you what kind of guy I can turn myself into, put on a tie, be all that for you. Sure, I can do that. I can act with the best of them. Pretty good actor. I can speak Japanese and everything. But my point is, it's a clear vision, whether it's for Alex or for Isabella. It's a clear vision. It doesn't overwhelm. It creates the next step in a process of steps that absolutely must be taken because they're the goal. And that goal will be served. Thy will, not my will, thy will. For sure, on earth as it is in heaven. That's the law. Right on. That's a really good note to end this one on. And this was recorded, and I will send this to you. So I got 3 good words in there. I hope they serve you.
It just is such a pleasure to see your face. And oh, but let me ask you, and you know, you may want to go to bed. I don't mind going over and paying a little bit more to keep talking if you're up for another 30 minutes. But I had sent you those videos. Okay, so if there was, not that I know that many people, but if there was one person, and I'm a pretty proud and picky person. If there was one person that I was gonna, I've been isolating from my spiritual stuff. I don't reach out to people very often. There's only been a few people that I have. But if there was one person that I was gonna pick to be my mentor, if for spiritual stuff or just life stuff, like you're the person that I respect and admire the most, that I would want to be a student of. But I had sent you those videos, but it's like I would like to be a student with you, but I want to, but like I said, I want to know that I can be completely honest and safe, and I don't like. I mean, I can get out there. I know all spiritual people can, but I just feel, and it's probably the conditioning from here. But like I said, it's like I just wanted to lay everything out and be like, like I don't know. It just you talk to me. I just laid that
Carol?
out there, but yes,
Carol?
yes.
Love and blessings upon blessings. Why don't we have another session at some point and talk more about that in detail? Because tonight was spent in quite a different avenue and direction. And I said a couple of
Okay.
important things that maybe you'd like to sit with a bit. You said a lot. There's stuff for you to perhaps think
So
about.
send me that recording when you get a chance so
I'm
I
gonna do it
can.
right now. I'm going to do it right now.
Okay, thank you. All
Absolutely.
right, well, okay, so first, I think you're awesome. And if you open that package yet, Have you opened that what? All right.
Down there somewhere.
Before I reached, okay, I just want to share one more thing with you. You popped in my head during my spiritual stuff, like the day before I came and came to look you up. And this is really before everything escalated and stuff. And I've been thinking about the whole mentor stuff, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'm just gonna keep I just want you to, whenever God and Spirit tell me to say something or whatever, I'm just gonna keep saying it. Akase no kobakashi na akase kono. But okay, I'm going to reach out to you next week because I'm about to be gone. I'm going to reach out to you next week about scheduling something else so we can talk, because I would like to talk about the mentorship thing, but I would also like to have a session to talk to you about the light language stuff.
I'll be here.
All right. Well, you have a great night and thank you so much.
You have a good day. I'll send this recording within the next 15 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Night, Carol.
Good night.